next. Sound good? We better fight fast. I mean, time's running out, folks. I sometimes feel like people think that this thing's a joke. No, this is dead serious. They're playing for keeps this time. They're thinking of putting us in prison. I mean, when I go on stage and I do this, do you know how much the military intelligence people hate me for exposing what they're doing? It's not an ego issue. They hate you. I mean, they detest you. They think you're scum. They want to kill you. They want to torture you. But they're not just going to kill you. They're going to rip your fingernails off and then they're going to kill you. People are the absolute most degenerate thing humanity has ever produced, and they hate you. We better fight back. Fight like they have the gun to your head, because they do. All right. We need to talk about the main legal architects. The main people who were pushing this were three people: Timothy Flanagan, David Addington, and John Yoo. These are members of the Federalist Society. Now, what happened to Addington? He's now Dick Cheney's chief of staff. You see how the progression happens. You see how this is interrelated. Flanagan went back into the private business. John Yoo, I think, is teaching at Stanford. You know, they get the accolades. They get to go make $10,000 speeches now. Really nice stuff. This is part of the Carl Schmitt principle, the Reichstag principle. They have handpicked federal and Supreme Court police state reactionaries to flood the legal system, and it's the legal formula of Nazi crown jurist Carl Schmitt. Cheney is the unitary executive in war. He has Hitlerian powers, and they are creating a legal pretext for the police state, destroying Posse Comitatus, and instituting martial law under Northcom. Write it down. Northcom, 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 Northcom. We need to learn who's controlling this country. Northcom. Two-sided psyop coin. Here you see on the left side, they're telling you, yeah, we torture. We'll beat you to death. We'll sodomize you. We'll rape you. We'll kill you. Then they have Nick Berg on the right. You notice any continuity between the color on the back of that wall and the color on the back of that wall? And you have these guys wearing these American sneakers here, wearing gold jewelry with white hands with their face all covered up. You see how he's wearing that prison jumpsuit there? You think there's some continuity that scandal on the left broke, and then Nick Berg came out a few days later? I mean, I think that was an execution that they engineered at Abu Ghraib prison. It's the two-sided psyop coin. The Arabs are going to cut your head off, and we're just going to beat you to death. Playing both sides of that issue. I mean, part of the reason, I don't think they wanted all these photos to get out, but there's a psychological operations effect of it. We'll beat you to death. You're nothing. You're scum. We'll torture you. We'll come out and say we're doing it. The Nazis hid this stuff. They're going to come out and tell you they do it and laugh about it. Rush Limbaugh thinks this is really funny. He's going on to say Guantanamo Bay, these places, it's like a resort camp. Oh, it's really funny. That stuff is funny when they sexually torture people, children as young as 11. It's hilarious. You know, people say Don Imus did hate speech. You want to know what hate speech is? Laughing at the sexual torture of children who are 11 years old, that's hate speech. That's somebody who should be pulled off the radio, you know? All right, let's move on here, because I don't want to take up too much time. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This is a group in which comes together in June 2001. You want to understand why the U.S. is scared? Empire isn't what it used to be. Shanghai Cooperation Organization. See those countries? You're going to have to learn a lot more about them. Those are the people who, in a World War III scenario, they're coming your way. When the sides come together, there's going to be NATO versus those guys. So let's flesh them out a little. SCO plus CSTO plus CIS plus ALBA equals counterbalance to NATO. Well, who's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? This is Russia, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan, controlling massive swaths of the world's liquefied natural gas and oil resources. Azerbaijan, Moldova, and Georgia are members of the CIS, which connects to the SCO, so you can think of them under the same grouping. Then you have the CSTO, which is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization plus Armenia and Belarus. It gets bigger. You have SCO observer states, India, Pakistan, Iran, Venezuela, and Mongolia, all of whom are saying they want to join this group. The Minister of Pakistan said, we're very serious, we want to join. India is conducting war games and drills with Russia and China saying, we want to join. At the same time as Pakistan, traditionally their rival, Iran and Venezuela are joining up. These people want to get in. It's so popular right now that Nepal wants to get in. There's talk of Turkmenistan getting in. There's even talk of Afghanistan getting in. Isn't that amazing? And they are developing closer working relationships with Syria and Lebanon via China and Russia. And they are edging closer to relationships with members of the Gulf Cooperation Council in the Middle East. That's Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. Furthermore, it gets bigger, folks. They have the ALBA coalition. And I'm talking about those leftist governments in Latin America. That's Ecuador, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Bolivia, and Cuba, which are linking together. And all of these people are coming together to form a counterbalance to the Anglo-American dominant faction right now. Petrodollar, the spiraling death. You have the oil bourses, which are set to open in Iran, but they've already opened in China and Russia. Nobody really talked about this. Yeesh. I've got to, I guess, rush through this. Major oil and gas producers are now accepting payments for oil and things other than dollars. They want to diversify their currencies. They're talking about a Russian-led natural gas OPEC, with some of these countries right now proposing to take over the natural gas market. This is a major threat to dollar hegemony. Of course, the U.S. is responding with AFRICOM and Al-Qaeda bombings in Algeria and incursions into Somalia and Ethiopia, where a lot of the oil is right now. How does this lead? Well, they need to restrict the oil supply. You restrict the oil supply, you keep the price high, keep the demand for dollars high while people still want dollars. So people talk about peak oil. Not really. So these are, I think, more state shortages. Now, it is true that some of the Saudi Arabian and Mexican and Kuwaiti fields are declining, but the peak oil alarmists ignore Russia, China, Norway, and all these other countries where oil is being discovered. It is true that there's a lag time between discovery and easy extraction. It is true that there's pipeline problems and issues of building this stuff. So, I tend to take more of a middle ground on these issues, but hedge fund speculation is at least $25 of the oil price, and Iraq is now a net importer of gasoline and oil. That tells you something. That tells you that there's sort of an agenda to shut down the pipeline, so that's something we need to think about. Again, it's a race to control liquefied natural gas. I do mention these are some of the countries where I think we're going to see future battles. Look to Kazakhstan. That's one of the major prizes that they're going after. U.S., Euro, Saudi cartel of oil producers. I've listed the companies there. You probably know them. Just check them out. Kazakhstan a likely next target. The problem is that as they spike oil prices, this strengthens Russia and China and non-NATO nations who sell this stuff. So what I like to say is, even if peak oil is staged, prices are going up. Maybe it is staged. I mean, there's a lot of arguments that this is just part of a Malthusian agenda, the population control. Even if it isn't, prices are going up, okay? Mercosur, this is related to the ALBA group. These are other Central and South American states which are getting together and saying, we reject the FTAA. This is an agenda that is stalled right now. These are the chess pieces for World War III right now. You can see them lining up. I mean, I think we all ought to own a map or globe or something like that in our house to understand how they've taken Ukraine now and made that a NATO protectorate right on Russia's doorstep, and similarly underneath done the same thing with Georgia there. Let's talk about this real quickly. NATO coups and conveniently timed deaths. The CIA has sponsored the color revolutions in Georgia in 2003 and Ukraine in 2004, 2005, immediately bringing them under NATO control right at the border of Russia. In 2005, there's a coup in Kyrgyzstan, which allows a U.S. base to be put there in Central Asia. There's been the recent untimely deaths of the heads of state in Armenia and Turkmenistan, replaced by pro-West reformists who are talking about a NATO alliance. There's a push for an independent Kosovo to join NATO, and Russia wants to respond by allowing the breakaway regions in Georgia to come back under their control. So here you see independent Kosovo. Russia responds with South Ossetia and Abkhazia, which they're saying, well, we're just going to recognize them as autonomous if you want it. Back and forth, Russia versus U.S. You can see the pieces lining up on the chessboard. The grand chessboard, by the way. War gains a vision into the future. Well, Putin continues to warn of nuclear war. China is seeking a diplomatic solution in Iran because they have major oil and natural gas deals. General Levashov, the Russian general staff, has come out and said that there could be an April attack. I think that signals the Russians are really afraid. SCO war games since 2000 postulate a U.S. attack on Russia and China and a massive nuclear counterstrike. They're predicting war. They see it coming. Russia and China are actively arming Iran and Syria. That's their base. We have Israel. They have Iran and Syria. U.S. Northcom war games like Vigilant Shield, which was run in December last year, predicted nuclear warfare with Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Yeah, Northcom sees it going there. Northcom controls the country. They know where it's going. Chinese generals are threatening to nuke the U.S. openly, saying that if you interfere in Taiwan, we will nuke you. Russians and Chinese are working on new space weapons, new missiles, and what they call asymmetric warfare responses. That means you're probably going to die. There's hacking wars right now going on between the U.S. and China, not really being covered, but look it up. And China now controls $1 trillion, at least, in reserves in U.S. stock market. They control our fate. It's a delicate balance right now. Don't want to get too angry, huh? Just want to point out something really important. Noble resolve. This is a drill coming up on April 23rd. I'm not saying this is going to happen. They are saying in the scenario, multiple terrorist scenarios, 10 kiloton nuke detonates in Virginia. They say they're going to be working with Department of Homeland Security, which is running other exercises that day, as you see at the bottom. It's coordinated with Virginia's Emergency Response Center. That's Mount Weather. Okay? This drill is called Noble Reserve 07. It features Joint Task Force Command and Northcom, of course, working with FEMA and the continuity of government, saying a problem begins in Europe, travels towards the U.S., mass warfare, we shut down the country, martial law, working with Department of Homeland Security and Mount Weather. April 23rd, let's look into this. Is this the launch point into war with Iran? Well, we need to remember, who ran the drills on 9/11? Northcom ran Vigilant Guardian and the hijackings and the AWACS drills. Stratcom ran the nuclear drills. FEMA ran the tripod drills. The NRO ran the plane crash drill. And Able Danger was managed by the DIA. So I start to say, well, these are the people who were behind 9/11. Space Warriors, Stratcom, Northcom, FEMA, DIA. There's your 9/11 coup faction. Now, how did they get their end game? WMD attack on American soil. Cheney said as much. Philip Giraldi came out in 2005 in the August American Conservative and said, Cheney is going to nuke Iran in the wake of a new 9/11 on American soil. I predict they'll blame it on Hezbollah. Say Iranian terrorists did it. They could blame it on Al-Qaeda. I think the myth of Al-Qaeda has been shattered enough. They'll switch it to Hezbollah. They could blame it on an individual named Adam Gaddan, this fat white kid who they say joined up with Al-Qaeda. And then they can say, see, it's white Al-Qaeda. Your Christian neighbor is Al-Qaeda. Your Jewish neighbor is Al-Qaeda. That guy in the street, he could be Al-Qaeda. It's not just Arabs anymore. It's not Persians. It's white Al-Qaeda. Azam the American. He says, blood's going to run in your streets. We're going to get you. It's like the John Walker Lydon principle. They want to make you think that Al-Qaeda could be a white thing, and that's going to be their justification, because when they want to round you up in camps, they say, see, he's a white guy. He's part of this, too. It's a good way to do it. It's a strong psychological operation. Remember, Stratcom just ran Global Storm 07 in March, simulating various nuclear world war scenarios. The U.S. Navy war games in late March in the Persian Gulf had mock aerial attacks on Iran and bombing missions. In March, they ran Juniper Cobra, where these drills were so big they had to be scaled back because they thought it was going to provoke war and they weren't ready for it yet. This dealt with the Arrow and Patriot missile systems right on Iran's doorstep. Some big ones that are coming up soon, hinting of a vast conflict. Well, there was the Full Eagle exercise in March. 29,000 U.S. soldiers, lots of different aircraft carriers with South Korea. This war game was so realistic that the North Koreans pulled out of this nuclear deal that they were cutting. Everybody said, why did the talks collapse? This is why the talks collapsed. These are real. This is not a game. This is real troops moving around, real preparations for war, and other countries know it. Operation Valiant Shield. Keep an eye out for this one. Late June, early July, 3 carrier strike groups, 28 ships, 280 warplanes, 22,000 troops, largest Pacific drill ever in Guam. That's right on China's doorstep. When Rumsfeld talks, China's the big threat. We need to get China. Guam is a place that they could do that. There's a Shanghai Cooperation Organization that's running a drill August 9th to 17th in 2007. Peace Mission 2007. They use the Orwellian language too. There's about 4,000 troops, 500 different types of weapon systems. Biggest drill for the SCO. Ardent Sentry Northern Edge. This one has me freaked out. First 2 weeks of May, they have, quote, realistic terrorist scenarios in the U.S. and Canada run by Northcom and 75 federal agencies, and the top off 07 drill in October 2007. Large-scale terror and WMD attacks. Russia and China are the final endgame targets. Rumsfeld said so. Stratcom says so. They're building a NATO missile defense system on Romania and Poland as a warning to Russia, as a provocation toward World War III. You have the article from the CFR, Lieber and Press, suggesting a successful first strike on Russia. The neoliberals are pushing for a direct confrontation, as are the neocons in many ways. Putin is saying U.S. relations are worse than during the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have the Ibashov warnings. I really only got a couple minutes. I had so much more I wanted to get to. Again, this is all related to the death of the dollar, and they're trying to create a cashless society control grid in the aftermath of this. Here you see people scanning with their finger. That's the future. Electronic currency. After the Amera, they want to push you into it. The head of Visa says by 2012, dollar's going to be gone. Everybody's going to pay with that little finger scan, eye scan. This is where it's going. Credit cards are a prognosticator of that. Pay with your Vera chip, RFID. That's RFID dust there. I mean, you can't even see that stuff. It's being embedded into products. You see somebody getting the Vera chip there. You see somebody with the RFID passports putting it into products there. It's in Philadelphia cream cheese. They put it onto the Walmart trucks. Total information awareness. They're expanding the databases. They have the Science Industrial Complex, DARPA, the NSF, National Institutes of Health, the RAND Corporation, Information Exploitation Office, and Defense Science Board working to create this global information grid, as they call it. I don't even know how I'm going to finish this. I had so much I wanted to talk about. This is so important to talk about the way they're using technology against us. This is the head of DARPA, a man named Tony Taylor. We want to talk about who could have helped out with something like 9/11. Look at a guy like that. I'll show you a picture again. Tony Taylor, DARPA. The future of human warfare, what I fear is that we're seeing nanotechnology, robotics and artificial intelligence, genetic engineering and cognitive science, and what they're trying to do is merge these things together. This is the way they control humanity. They're taking the next generation of technology and trying to do what they call the convergence. Engineering at the atomic level, artificial intelligence